Imagine the greatest figure skater in the world standing alone on Olympic ice in front of 10,000 screaming fans, and somehow, impossibly, falling apart. That sick feeling in your stomach, that's what the whole arena felt in that moment. Not once, twice. Because watching greatness collapse in real time, there's nothing in sports quite like it. He had gone unbeaten for over 2 years, 14 full competitions, 2 consecutive world championships, a streak that made him look less like a human being and more like a force of nature. And yet, in the single moment that was supposed to define everything, he was just a kid, overwhelmed, alone, on the biggest stage in the world. How does the best figure skater on the planet finish 8th at the Olympics? That question hung in the air like smoke. Nobody had an answer. Not the commentators, not the crowd, not even him. That's what we're here to find out. But the answer, when it finally came, wasn't about jumps or technique or any athletic failure you could put your finger on. It was about something far more invisible and far more terrifying. This is the story of Ilia Malinin, and it might just be the most human story in sports this year. He didn't just fall, he unraveled. And the difference between those 2 words is everything. After falling twice and popping 3 jumps, including his signature quadruple Axel, Malinin finished in 8th place at the 2026 Winter Olympics in Milan. 8th, the same skater who had been making the sport look almost embarrassingly easy for 2 straight years. What was supposed to be his crowning moment, the culmination of nearly 3 years of total dominance, became one of the most stunning collapses in figure skating history. And if you watched it live, you felt it. That collective inhale, the crowd going quiet in a way that felt almost like grief. But here's what makes this story different from every other tale of Olympic heartbreak. Ilia Malinin didn't try to blame the ice conditions. He didn't deflect. He didn't give the polished, sanitized answer that PR teams dream up. He stood in front of the cameras, still in his skates, still processing, and he told the truth. "I blew it," he said, moments after leaving the ice. 3 words. No excuses, no spin. Just a 21-year-old sitting inside one of the worst nights of his life, refusing to hide from it. To understand how deep this fall was, you have to understand how high he had climbed. And we're talking about heights that most athletes, most humans, will never come close to. In 2022, Malinin became the first skater to ever successfully land a quadruple axel in international competition. Let that sink in. Not just one of the first in the entire history of the sport. A jump so technically demanding that coaches called it impossible, and a teenager who spent COVID lockdown teaching himself quad jumps in an empty rink, just went ahead and did the impossible. He called himself the quad god, and honestly, nobody argued. Not when you're landing jumps that the rest of the world can't even attempt. By 2025, he had landed a quadruple axel and 5 other quadruple jumps in a single world championship program, winning by more than 31 points over the second-place skater. 31 points in a sport where a fraction of a point decides gold medals. Malinin wasn't just winning, he was operating in a completely different dimension. Heading into the 2026 Winter Olympics, he was undefeated for over 2 years. The favorite wasn't just on paper, it was practically destiny. Nathan Chen, the last American men's champion, was sitting in the press seats. Nathan Chen at the 2018 Olympics in Pyeongchang faltered under that exact same pressure. He finished 17th in the short program. The world called it a collapse. And then he came back, and he became one of the greatest figures the sport has ever seen. Chen had been sitting in the press seats watching Malinin fall. He had lived this. He understood it in a way nobody else in that arena could. The next question became inevitable. Could Malinin do what Chen did? Not in 4 years, in 4 weeks. Because the World Championships were coming. Prague, March 28th, 1 month after the worst night of his life. 1 month to either let this become his story or to write a different one. Here's where the character is revealed. Here's where you find out who someone actually is, because pressure doesn't build character, it reveals it. Malinin came to Prague with, in his own words, no big expectations and almost no pressure at all. Something had shifted. The fall had stripped away the armor, the invincibility, the myth, and what was left underneath was something more real and ultimately far more powerful. Standing on the ice in his finishing pose after the free skate in Prague, Malinin screamed while pumping his fists, a primal, raw, real roar. A stark contrast to Milan, where he had finished covering his face with both hands. He won the free skate with 218.11 points, the overall title with 329.40, 3 consecutive world championships, the third one coming just 1 month after the 8th place Olympic finish that could have ended his confidence entirely. He didn't just win, he won by nearly 23 points. He didn't tiptoe back, he came back swinging. He called it a fresh start for the next 4 years. 4 years. The 2030 Olympics in the French Alps are already on the horizon, and Malinin is already looking forward. There is a version of this story where Ilia Malinin lets the Olympics define him, where the narrative becomes the quad god who melted under the lights. Some athletes never escape that. They carry it forever. This is not that story. Some 3 months after his 8th place finish, Malinin launched his own YouTube channel. After just one post, more than 70,000 subscribers. He went on sold-out tours across Japan and the United States. He spoke openly about mental health and the invisible pressure of elite competition in ways that athletes almost never do. He didn't just come back. He came back more honest, more himself, more powerful. The greatest athletes in history aren't the ones who never fail. They're the ones who fail in front of the entire world in the most public way possible, with everything on the line, and then find a way to answer. Ilia Malinin answered. The quad god isn't gone. He just learned something that no amount of perfect competition could ever have taught him. And now, with the 2030 Olympics already circling the horizon, he's not just a dominant skater, he's a story worth following for the next decade. Because the second chapter of a legend, it's always better than the first. If this story moved you, if you've ever felt that pressure, that invisible weight that nobody else can see, drop it in the comments. Tell me about a time you fell and had to get back up. Subscribe if you want to be here when the next chapter gets written. Because trust me, you don't want to miss what comes next.